disappointed that I got to, or that I had to miss being there and meeting everybody in person, but we're still really excited about this virtual opportunity to share our experience with you guys. We actually just in a very exciting stages of our competency-based education program development process. Very exciting time, and I'm going to let Dr. Keller talk a little more about that piece of it as we get into this. But for this presentation, my goal is to cover 3 different topics. The first topic, I would like to just give everyone just a really general overview about the status of competency-based education in higher education today. And then I would like to dive into our personal experience, because every campus can have a very different approach to CBE. I just want to give a little insight about how we decided to pursue competency-based education and why. And at the very end, I have some very cool tools that I put together for everyone, just in case somebody was in the beginning stages of developing or if they're considering competency-based education. I just know this was something I wish I had from the very beginning. So I put together a little toolkit for everyone to take home with you guys. I'm also open to questions throughout the presentation. So I mentioned to Garrett, if there's something that you guys want to ask in mid-presentation, feel free, chime in, let me know what you guys have questions about. And anything from you, Terry, or are you good?
No, I think I'll help watch the chat as you go through, Angela, and contribute. And I think one of the pieces is, you know, one of the things that you'll see is this has taken some time to put together, and I think hopefully our experience, if you're thinking about this, can help you. And you know, we learned a lot. You know, we didn't do this perfectly, but we've learned a lot, and we want to help others with that. So go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So just to kind of give everyone just an overview about the status of competency-based education and higher education. This was something that I really had to figure out, because competency-based education really doesn't have a universal definition or a universal framework to follow, because it's so new in higher ed. The term competency-based has been around for quite some time, but you've typically seen that in corporations or just business settings, really. So moving into higher ed, it's still very new to especially larger organizations, such as like the Department of Education or accreditation bodies. So trying to figure that out and navigating that process is a little challenging, but it can also be beneficial, because if everything's still new, you still have an opportunity to move forward with meeting your goals and really defining competency-based education depending on what the institution mission, vision, and values are. So right now, again, still new, but there are some similar characteristics to competency-based education, and that's really what I want to touch on with this part of it. While there are no universal definitions, the general concept for competency-based education is that you're measuring a student's ability, competencies, and ability to demonstrate a topic or a skill versus measuring seat time in the classroom. And that's the overall concept. We're trying to move away from that credit hour. And if you think about it, higher education over time, we're embedded, and that's how we create policies. That's how we coordinate faculty pay scales and how students complete programs. It's all based off that credit hour. So really trying to steer away from that can be challenging to a higher education world that depends on everything with the credit-based model. But again, this creates a lot of benefits, because students that that require some additional support, or maybe they need that flexibility with their educational model, competency-based education can provide that for students. And I'll dive deeper into that in just a moment, but the general concept is being able to measure a student's ability to complete a topic versus that seat time in the classroom. Now, when I started actually looking at different competency-based education models, there were 3 different ones that I came across, and there's all different types that you guys can research, and there's different ways to actually approach each one of these models, but these are the general concepts to each of these models. The first one that I really came across and that you'll see quite often is direct assessment. And this one really separates the credit hour from learning activity. So this is kind of a truer CBE model because this allows a lot of flexibility. It allows quicker program completion times because students are allowed to complete as many competencies, or in higher education world, the term is modules or topics, as quickly as they're able to, which overall that creates a more affordable tuition rate, because if it's a quicker program completion time, that means overall tuition is a lot less than the traditional model. So the true direct assessment is really good for that type of benefit. There are some challenges though that I've seen, and that is with federal aid. Because the Department of Education is still, a lot of their policies tied back to credit hours, it makes it a little bit challenging to actually map back all of the competencies and to prove that the students are really receiving that amount of work that is required to receive federal aid. So it's not impossible, just it requires a lot of manpower. And a lot of detailed mapping. So there's a lot of work that goes into direct assessment, but overall it is very beneficial. A second model that I ran into was the course equivalency model. And this one is really beneficial because it kind of ties both worlds together. You can provide students a very flexible learning modality, and at the same time, you can tie back those competencies back to credit hour. And I'll explain a little bit more how this works, because this is one that we chose to pursue for our educational model here at Lourdes University. But again, benefits, it's flexible, affordable, and really is an overall quick completion time for students to complete their programs and their courses. The one challenging part about this is curriculum mapping. It looks a little different than the traditional course map. And that's because we're looking at competencies and versus modules and topics, but behind the scenes, we're really tying that back to meet that credit hour. So that way on the student transcript, it looks just like the traditional model. Students are able to receive federal aid without any negative implications. So this is one that we felt that we could fit with our institution. The other model is the hybrid model, and that one can look a lot of different ways depending on the campus and the institutional goals and mission and vision. So the hybrid model can incorporate both the direct assessment, course equivalency, it can incorporate face-to-face, online. So there's a lot of different modalities that can take place in a hybrid model. The problem with that one is it can become really challenging, again, with the federal aid if students are receiving the Pell Grant or any type of student loans. So in a nutshell, this is kind of what CBE looks like right now in higher education. But to dive a little bit deeper into, went backwards, 1 second. Okay, so one of the important questions is really what made us consider CBE, because it is still new. And like I said, there's really no universal concept to this that is adapted by institutions across the country. So one of the critical things is like, what made us consider this? Now, and I'm not trying to boost Dr. Keller's ego here, but we have some very good visionaries on our campus, and Dr. Keller and Dr. Gwalik, who's the president of Lourdes University, did a very, very good job at seeing the bigger picture. So before they brought me on board to help with the launch of the competency-based programs, they looked at this data and they seen a problem on our campus. We were once home to the adult learner population. And as you can see over time and over the course of years, that drastically fell. Our non-traditional students comparison to our traditional students, it declined drastically. So there was an issue there, and we had to figure out where was that gap? Well, what were we not doing correctly to meet the needs of those students? So I think that's when Dr. Keller and Dr. Gwalik gave me the opportunity to come on board and help out. So we looked at the adult learner population. What is it that we offer and what is it that they want and need? So what we were currently offering was traditional face-to-face courses. We had a few online courses and some online programs, and we had some evening courses. If you look at what the needs are of the adult learner today, that really doesn't fit it all the way. So adult learners today, their needs are a little bit different. You have a lot of different family dynamics, a lot of different responsibilities that adult learners have that maybe they didn't have a while ago. So when we asked these questions, we noticed that adult learners wanted that really flexible education. They want a quick career advancement and something that they can do without impacting their daily lives. They don't want to miss baseball games or their daughter's recitals. And, you know, there's a lot of things that they just don't want to miss out on. So what could we do to meet that need? And that's where competency-based education came in. So the other thing that we wanted to consider is meeting our mission. We did want a solution that really stayed true to what we believed on campus. And if you discuss education with any of our faculty across campus, you're going to hear that they really value that one-on-one attention and that one-on-one support for students. A lot of our faculty, they take their education beyond just the classroom, and they really do understand and know what the students' needs are, and we wanted to keep that. So we were trying to figure out, okay, well, what is it that we need to make sure that we embed that personalized approach to learning for students in line with our mission. And that's, again, where competency-based education came in. So the challenging question, okay, so how do we approach this? Now, we understood our gap, we understood a solution, but then where do we take this from? There's so many different options, so many different models. So the first thing that I did was start researching what other institutions did, what were the problems, what they were successful with. And the one thing that they told me to do that I'm really happy I did from the beginning was create these focus groups. And the focus groups included everybody across campus. Because if you think about this, higher education, again, just kind of going back to what I said earlier, we are embedded with this credit model or this credit hour. So everything that departments touch on campus, it ties back to that credit hour, including like policies, what we follow, how we structure everything. So we had to bring all of these departments to the table and ask some of these hard questions and saying, if we decided to create this new learning modality on campus, what is it going to look like in your department? Because it does impact how we deliver financial aid, how we report to transcripts. We have these SIS systems and how would they communicate with one another. So all of these things impacted in some type of way from the CBE model that we wanted to implement. So we brought to the table all of these different departments, and then we had to really ask these questions about what is it going to look like on campus, universal terminology, challenges and solutions. And one of the biggest things, and I have a star next to this one, input about the development process. And that's because one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest regrets that campuses have when pursuing competency-based education development was not receiving input from all of these departments. So I did star that one because that was one of the biggest challenges that I heard was faced. So we actually we still run these focus groups monthly. There's constantly updates, there's constantly new things going on, and something that may have worked 4 months ago may not work now. So having this consistency of these focus groups is very critical to the development process. And then once we kind of got these groups together and we started having these conversations, we needed to identify what worked for us. So as I mentioned earlier, we decided that the course equivalency model worked best for us based off of our institution because we are a smaller campus with limited staff, limited resources. So we needed something that would fit what we had, the staffing that we had, and then what was low impact to the student policies on campus. Course equivalency model fit perfectly. All of these different models, there's really not a best practice or a best model. It really is unique based off of the institution and what the overall goals are of the institution. So the next thing, I'm sorry, I covered that one already. So we'll go to the next one. So the next thing that we looked at is how we could implement this course-based credit equivalency model, okay? So we decided that based off the resources that we have, based off of the faculty that we had to support this initiative, we decided to leverage a learning adaptive platform to make this work. So we decided we were going to go fully online, and in order to make this one-on-one personalized approach work for students, the learning adaptive system that we decided on would allow us to do that kind of thing. So we were able to pull granular reports. We're going to be able to create a very flexible environment, meaning that students can complete courses on their own time without waiting for their faculty member or teacher to release modules for them. The other really nice thing that we can do with this learning adaptive system that we wouldn't be able to do in a traditional model is embed a success coach to these programs that are fully online. The success coach will be there as their academic support, and I'll talk a little bit more, I'm sorry, their non-academic support, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, but this was the third decision that we had to make. So leveraging this technology was a very critical thing for our program development as well. The fourth thing that we had to do, and we're actually in the stages right now of this, is hiring new staff for competency-based education. We have an instructional designer that her sole focus is just to focus on developing CBE programs, assisting faculty with questions within the new learning adaptive platform that we decided to purchase. And we're in the midst of hiring a success coach, and they are there as a student's personal mentor. This is another really critical role for competency-based education, because a key thing for students in the CBE model is that retention rate. We want to make sure that we're keeping up to date with where they are in the program. This does allow flexibility, so if students stop out for a period of time, we want to have a person that's going to be there to connect with them regularly to make sure that they're completing the program in a reasonable manner. So we don't want to have students stop out for a year and then we lose track of where they are. So the success coach is going to be really critical to ensuring that we have high retention with these programs. Now for the approval part, I'm going to let Dr. Keller talk a little bit about this, because this was a little bit more on his end and I just helped him get there. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Angela. And one of the things that I will say is, as we think about approvals, is Angela's spot on, and I know she minimized her role in this, but having her here prior to the start during development was key, because now she knows this program, you know, inside and out, which is, I think, key to not only helping answer questions from faculty, but also from staff and our crew moving forward. So in terms of approvals, one of the things that we did, and Angela mentioned it, is we went to all of our governing bodies and made sure that we had conversations, we had open forums, we talked about this at all campus meetings. Angela went to Faculty Senate, Angela went to Curriculum and Policy Committee, Angela's been to our Graduate Executive Council, which is our curriculum committee there. So we did all of this really toward the beginning and as we're developing that. And one of the things that I can say that made really all of this possible is we were able to write and receive a Title III grant that provides significant support to do this program. But it also allows us, as we wrote the grant, and Cindy Hurst is our grant writer, I have to give credit to her, she does an amazing job. We were able to actually build in for our campus as well, a focus on this broader thing of competency-based education, which we're talking about. We were able to build in as well the positions that Angela mentioned, but also a workplace experience coordinator. So looking at those internships and experiences that students can have, not only in CDE, but also across our campus, and an assessment specialist that's really going to focus on assessment across our campus. That's their full-time job and their full-time focus. But they do have a part of their job that's focused on looking at CDE across the courses, and more of that $15,000 or $30,000 foot view in terms of looking at what we are doing and how we are assessing the program, and also looking broadly at a hands-on approach with our evaluation team that we brought in. We brought in an external evaluator because we think that is important, and they are doing a fantastic job in terms of looking at not only integration of CVE, but also what we're doing across campus. So that approval piece allowed for, you know, us to move forward, us to get individuals in play. Rita Poole, I can't say enough about either. Our instructional designer really is spot on in terms of coming in and really helping get things moving. And you know what I will say, and Angela didn't mention it, but one of the exciting pieces is as of Monday, we are Higher Learning Commission approved. So, you know, that's the piece of, you know, we were waiting on this. I won't tell you how long we were waiting, but we were waiting a while. But the exciting piece is you have to think about time, right? And I can tell you that our intended start date was pushed back in terms of launch of the programs because of not only a combination of the virus and us closing down and the amount of time we had to focus on that, but also it's, you know, filling out the application. You know, we submitted the application in the fall semester, but it's also revisions and approvals. And then, you know, things that happened didn't happen in our favor. So, and nothing like in terms of the program was great. And we have wonderful comments from the Higher Learning Commission about it. It's just the amount of time and availability of individuals to go forward with this. And, you know, we had a presentation that we were going to do at the HLC conference this year. We got a wonderful time slot. And, you know, I will say that because I think we'd have a great crowd there in terms of talking about this. But again, things changed, obviously, with the conference being canceled. And I think one thing to point out is as we look at this and we look at, you know, the application and really that whole infrastructure process, you know, the more that you have in place beforehand, the better. And I know Angela has tools and some things that, you know, we'll talk about. But if we don't have infrastructure in place prior, you know, you're going to start spinning your wheels. And the biggest thing for us, and I come back to this, is we spend a lot of time on education for our faculty. A lot of times understanding it. Yes, we got pushback from faculty in terms of delivery. Yes, we got pushback in terms of compensation in the model, but we continued those conversations. We embraced that kind of discourse a little bit. And I think we're at a point where, you know, we're actually excited, not only approval on Monday, but course development. I have them here, course development stipends for faculty are going out in the next day. And Angela has an email that's in my inbox that's going to give directions to do that. So it's almost as if when you're sharing information and doing that, you know, just share where it's at. And I think that's the piece and where we're at, where we can't go. And in terms of one of the questions that I get often is, how did it go through the Senate? Well, we upfront right away looked at this as another modality of delivery. We're not changing any course outcomes. We're not changing anything in terms of that. So we really approached it as another mode of delivery and was able to work with our Senate and our curriculum committee because the courses and everything are approved through those. And we actually put the focus on the e-learning committee. So our e-learning committee reviews our online courses. So through Quality Matters, they are going to go through and review these courses and give the university stamp as we go forward. So these are all starting development on July the 6th, right, Angela? July the 6th, we're starting development for a launch in the spring. So I think the piece of it is, you know, having that, we have strong support from, you know, President's Cabinet, from the team, from the Board of Trustees, and it really allowed us to make this happen. You know, it's been Angela's been here a year in April, was it, roughly?
So much trouble. It was June.
Well, June, I mean, a year in June is exactly what I meant to say. It's been a year in June, so your anniversary is here. And that's the piece of it. Really did. You know, it all happened within this time frame. We had some framework, but, you know, Angela came in and moved it forward.
I appreciate that. And I wanted him to talk a little bit about this because it really was like all hands on deck to get this process started, especially with meeting all of the expectations from every accreditation body that we have to answer to, and I'm sure a lot of institutions do. And I'm always happy to share that experience with others on kind of what to look for, because it's really there's not a lot out there. So I think the more that we share these experiences with one another, it does help, especially guiding that into a world that really isn't universally defined. And I think that's the biggest challenge. So just kind of, and then the last slide that I do want to cover before I get into like the toolkit is how to measure these programs. And I think that's one of the most important pieces, especially when trying to meet all of the expectations from our accreditation organizations, and with our Title III grant now that we have. So number one thing is going to be enrollment and retention. I think that's just with any program, you want to show that. So as we're building, that was one of the main factors that I had to consider, is how can we pull and retrieve all of this data to prove that these are very successful programs. We decided to use a learning adaptive platform, as I mentioned before, but that's not the only way. A lot of institutions do launch hybrid models, or they like to launch something that's maybe not fully online, and they like to offer those face-to-face CBE models too. So this isn't the only way. This was just a way that worked for us to really capture that enrollment and retention. Those are our primary measures. And then I have a lot of secondary measures because I faculty. I also dove into a little bit of instructional design. There's a lot of things that interest me. And a lot of this has to go with like progression and how can we improve courses and how can we improve the entire program. So a lot of these lists that are on here, like time to completion, student satisfaction, faculty satisfaction, even in incorporating other stakeholders. I'm really interested to see how our stakeholders interpret these different programs and what they see successful and what they would like to improve, because a big part of our CBE programs, we do want to embed our partners. The first two programs that we're going to launch are within the College of Nursing, and we have a lot of partners in the area, and we want to know if our graduating classes from these CBE programs are in fact really meeting the needs and their skill set that they want to see students come in with. So there's a lot of different ways that we wanted to assess these programs outside of the scope of what our accreditation bodies want to see. And then the last piece, a lot of the information that I've collected were through these resources, the Competency-Based Education Network. And I will let you know that they are very open to sharing their experiences. I think I have learned more from this group than anything else that I have looked at, researched, or anybody else that I spoke with. They're not really like trying to hold on to what they have, because they're not afraid of like, this is a competition. They're as educators and they want to improve educational models. I also learned a lot from the journal Competency-Based Education. They have a lot of great resources on there that you can use. And then of course, if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me about the process. I'm happy to kind of go over that with you. And the last thing is the CBE toolkit. So this is what I really wish I would have had just starting out. So I'm going to go over this with you guys, but the link is offered to you on the presentation. And I believe Garrett sent it to you as well. I don't want to speak for you, but if not, I'll send it out as well. So the CBE toolkit contains a couple different things. So first is the organization chart. Now this organization chart is how our competency-based education programs touched every department. So I had to consider everybody working in financial aid and registrar, enrollment admissions, and as you can see, the list goes on. It is really touching base on every piece of the infrastructure. So to sit down and map everything out, saying if this is the type of CBE model that I want to approach, what departments need to be incorporated on this plan? Like who needs to be involved and what input do I need to get back from? So I created my example and then I left a blank copy so that you guys can fill out if you guys wanted to do that, especially for those that are in the beginning stages of development. The next chart that I have is the focus group chart. So this is how I broke down some of the focus groups, because it can get overwhelming when you invite everybody to the table. It could really drive you nuts. So you really want to break those down. And I broke down the different focus groups that I meet with regularly. And then I also left a blank chart for you guys to fill out as well, if you wanted to map that out for yourself. And then the final one are the questions for each department. So this is what I collected over the time, like when I started putting together this model and starting reaching out to different vendors and other institutions. I really didn't know exactly all of the questions to ask. So I put together a list of very good questions to start with, because these are going to be your high level overview questions. And as long as you can answer these, then you can start really diving down into the more granular aspects of the development process. So you want to consider things like, what is your current budget? Are there opportunities for you to get money somewhere else? What kind of resources do you have? Do you have faculty and the technology on campus to implement these type of these programs? So all of these things I've listed for you just to kind of take a look at. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. But that is a takeaway for you. So I know I have about 15 minutes left. So are there any questions that you have for myself or Dr. Keller about the development process or competency-based education?
Okay, I'm trying to click in. Excellent presentation. And again, hats off to you at Lord's University. I'm not familiar with the landscape, but I have no idea who you guys are, but this is amazing. I wanted to add two things to this, however. During my work at Cuyahoga Community College, we were the pilot site for the adult diploma program, which was a state legislated competency-based education program for adults to complete their high school diploma and in-demand industry credential. And that's been going on since 2015. Since then, they've also opened up that pathway for high school students to complete their high school diplomas in a competency-based education pathway. And so giving your landscape, your geography, if you're nearby an educational service center or someone who offers the adult diploma program, it would be amazing to see how that transfers over to post-secondary success. Again, because we're going to see more high school students coming out with CBE backgrounds, and they're going to come into our institutions and expecting to learn, expecting to have that modality. And so I really do want to take my hat off to you, because I think you're the only university in the state of Ohio to have really pursued this at this level. And congratulations on your HLC accreditation.
Oh, I do appreciate that a lot. And I do see that a lot, especially in high schools. I know that a lot of them are taking on a hybrid model. And especially after this whole pandemic, a lot of institutions high schools and into junior highs, they're using that type of model. So we're interested too. We have been speaking with a lot of partners, a lot of possible partners, and seeing how we can make it work. And we're even open to, after we launch these for our adult learners, we want to see how this looks for our freshman class or our undergraduate programs.
Yeah, what we're thinking of really here, which is exciting, is as we were in the process of really redeveloping our core and general education requirements here at Lord's. It's that time, in our cycle. And, there's been talk amongst the community about having every individual that comes through Lord's, whether or not you're in our CBE program, to have a CBE experience in some way. So we're looking at creative ways to build it into service learning, but also we have looking at CBE module type things for our digital and media studies major, and other areas to really kind of start to incorporate it a little more into our overall curriculum. So, we're definitely excited about the possibility.
I have a question. I'm Roxanne Sorek. I teach at Hiram, and I've been involved in some preliminary conversations here about CBE and revision of the core, those kinds of things. From my understanding, am I correct that you really started with nursing? And that was your main thinking, and then you're moving out from there?
Well, actually, our main thought was because the adult learner population really triggered that whole concept for competency-based education to be implemented on our campus. Nursing really did make sense because, for one, there's a need based in our area for RN to BSN and RN to MSN. But the second thing was a lot of their structure and the time frame that we wanted to launch this. Nursing also had established competencies. So to launch a healthcare program made sense for our institution as well, because they were the most set and prepared for a CBE approach. And then once were able to navigate that, we can use that as one of our mock courses and mock programs to spread through the rest of the campus into other programs. So nursing, yes, is our first one because it made sense for us on 2 different levels, but we fully intend next to go to the College of Business, and then we're gonna hopefully get into some other areas of studies.
And I think with the courses, as you're thinking about looking at those, doing it this way with our RN to BSN really have allowed us to involve our faculty in the humanities and arts and sciences in terms of understanding and developing courses within CDE. And I think overall, we're happy with this because this allow them to kind of understand not only the development process, but also the delivery. And, you know, many of these individuals serve on our committees that are, you know, reworking the core and gen ed requirements.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Do you have anything else? I think they're ready for your song and dance, Dr. Keller.
I know, I'm gonna have to get ready. I should probably stretch first.
But I will say we are extremely excited. This is probably one of the most challenging, stressful, but exciting roles I've ever had. But I'm happy to take this on. I've had about 13 years of experience in student service roles, just in different areas, financial aid and recruiting and those kind of things. And being able to pull all of those things together into one role has been very exciting. So this is a very large initiative to take on, but I think if you have the right manpower, the right support, and the need for this, it can really help your institutions meet an overall goal of their mission, vision, and just whatever it is that you're trying to reach.
Well, this is just incredible. I'm really blown away with the level, especially of coordination across campus. So thank you so much for sharing this. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, you didn't have any questions?
Hey, Terry, no question. I'm just, I now know why you've been so quiet for the last 6 months.
Slightly.
No, this is really exciting. And, Terry, building the team to really make this happen. So kudos to you and the team for really, working across campus to make this happen. And congratulations to you, Angela, and team for what you've been able to, to really accomplish there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.